Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next, and I have been reading up a storm. Partially because I had deadlines, and it pushed me to do it, and so I'm hoping to keep that reading momentum going. So first thing I finished since we last talked was The Reformatory by Tome, because I needed an audiobook. So this past Saturday was like, we got our first round of lake effect snow. It's already gone, but like for a few days we had a bunch of snow, and I'm like, we need to like do things because the first snow is almost here. So that's when I finished this book. It's really good. I think it's objectively better than the rating I will give it, because my ratings are always a combination of how good something is and how much I wanted to pick it up. And that doesn't mean it has to be fun, and this is definitely not a fun story, but it was really long. This is a very long book for how relentless it is. This is a relentless story. I do like, so far, how Tome ends her horror stories. I'll be vague about that. But I did enjoy the ending, and I think it's a very good historical fiction with supernatural elements. I think, like, it's obviously still a horror. There are graphic scenes, there are real life horrors, there are supernatural side effects of those horrors. But I do think that if someone was a historical fiction reader who was scared of horror because horror was too scary, I don't think they need to be scared of that. I think this is more horror in real life things. So if like they can handle the Nickel Boys, I think they can handle the Reformatory. So like I'd be more willing to give that type of reader this book than say The Good House, because The Good House is definitely more pulpy, scary horror story, I feel. This is more real life. America has a history and a present day, that kind of sucks sometimes. So yeah, that was very fun. And well, fun as in I finished it. So I felt very good about finishing a book. And it's a big book that was off my TBR. The other one that I finished, because this morning I interviewed C.L. Clarke, which was delightful. That'll be up probably within the next couple weeks or so. But before that, I wanted to finish The Sovereign, and so I did. I believe yesterday I finished the ending of this trilogy. Oh, such a beautiful book. I really love this cover, especially now having read the book. And this is the ending of a trilogy that I think just really sticks the landing. I think it sets out to accomplish what it set up from the beginning in a way that I feel very few trilogies have been able to do. It basically fulfills promises that we kind of expected about learning about the magic. We get a really big focus on the people and the places and how we're going to change and resolve government and things like that. We do definitely get good growth and resolution to Terrain and Luca, both in their own arcs, but also with each other. I had a great time. I really recommend The Unbroken. I think it's a super solid kind of more, I don't know if historical fantasy is the right word. Like, it's not medieval fantasy. It's not that old. Like, we've got guns and stuff like that. But it's definitely inspired by our historical time. And then also has some god magic. And it just has these characters that are so messy. I really love the mess of these characters and how every time they do something, I'm like, oh my goodness, I hate that you did that because it's going to cause XYZ problems. But does it make sense that you did that? Oh boy, yes. So like the character work is some of my favorite. Everything feels so grounded in everyone's own personal thought trees and agendas and bubbles. And, you know, I find that more and more it's hard for me to find like new characters that I love. But Terrain is still one of my new favorite characters that I've read since being on BookTube. Met her in 2021. She's iconic, continues to be iconic and messy in this book. And yeah, there's just so many good characters and arcs. And for those who have read the book, I read this scene that's on the cover at 1 a.m., which was a choice of mine. But that's how much I wanted to be reading this book. And she's thick and she's glorious. And I just learned about new work that we're going to be getting in a couple years from C.L. Clarke. And it's a standalone. And I'm like really pumped. So yeah, I you know, that's two really thick tomes, okay? Like, I read the majority of this and like half of this, so I'm doing my own mini tome topple here, apparently. The next thing I read, I have book club tonight, and I'm hoping any of it makes sense to me. But I read Rouge Street, which is, I don't know when it was translated versus when it came out. Maybe I'll re-listen to like the forward and translator's note while I like go to book club. It says translated copyright is 2022. So that's what we're gonna go with. It has 3 novellas in here that I believe are interconnected. I don't know if they're actually interconnected. I think there's just 3 novellas and they're maybe like in a similar place and time. Like I said, I'm really hoping book club helps me understand this better, and then maybe end of the month I can explain it better. But this is what I know right now. There are 3 stories in here. One of them is called The Aeronaut. And there was a thing that was in all 3 of these stories, is there was this constant jumping between present and past and jumping between characters. And then I finally learned to just trust the process and everything would come together. And it largely did for most of them. But it was difficult, one, because I really only had audiobook time for this, and it probably would have been easier if I was physically reading it. Especially because what makes that hard with a translated work in a culture I know very little about is the proper nouns. The proper nouns are hard for me, and that's not the book's fault. So trying to keep track of, okay, this is the name of now this person's uncle or father, because family's a big thing in this too. There's a lot of interpersonal family drama, lost mothers, things like that, unfulfilled promises to oneself. Another reason I want to re-listen to the foreword is I think that this takes place at a really interesting point in Chinese history. It's after the Cultural Revolution, I believe. I think in like the 80s is when most of these stories are supposed to take place, if I'm remembering the foreword at all. Our main character, not a main character, but I think the author is born in 1983. So like, it's pulling from what we would now, I guess, considered historical fiction times, which like, don't come at me for saying that, because, you know, 1980s and stuff. Also, this is really gross, but this is a library copy. And I'm not going to touch it because that grosses me out, but I just found this in this library copy. Like a toothpick thing. Like, what are people... I get using anything for bookmarks, but no. So I'm going to have to deal with that. So anyways, obviously I didn't read this physically, right? So The Aeronaut, it took me a while to figure out what was happening, because like we jumped through time a lot, time and perspective, and like there's one character who's first person perspective and the rest is third, and I'm like, a lot of it was like, what's the point? What are we doing? And I had to feel that way for a lot of them. Another thing that I think is less I listened to it on audio, so I struggled problem, is more of a cool thing about reading translated works is you truly do get to travel somewhere else. And not so much like the location, right? Like, I mean, there were descriptions about the streets and the buildings and things like that, but that worked about as well for me as that does in a fantasy novel. But culturally speaking, and I've noticed this with a few Chinese translations that I've read specifically, is like there is family dynamics and cultural like hierarchy dynamics that feel really weird to me. Not weird bad, but they are not what I consider normal. And so it's really interesting how I'm like connecting those threads as I've been reading just more and more Chinese works. Just, you know, who you answer to in your family, what is owed, what is the proper way of doing things, how marriages can and can't work. And it was just interesting because it feels different from when I've read Korean or Japanese, which makes sense, right? But it's just, there's a cadence to the styles that I'm getting in translated Chinese as well. What I mean by cadence is like, yes, they are translating what people are saying in Chinese to English to the best of their abilities, because, you know, its languages are not one-to-one, but multiple translators have been like translating sentences that feel just like, I don't think people use those sentences, and it's all very similar. So I'm like, it's really interesting. It's like cool. It's cool, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it, so this is why I'm a garbled mess, and I'm really excited and hoping book club wraps it up nice for me. I also really don't know what this is like a picture of on the cover. But this is definitely literary. This is very literary. Like, there is a scene in the second story where I'm like, what is happening? And I'm like, oh, this is like very surreal, like super surreal at one point. You're hopping around and people almost, and I think this is something I'm hoping to unpack tonight. Is like in literary fiction for American works, sometimes you're like, okay, this is like an extreme metaphor. No one is this way. This is a very caricature way of looking at people like this. Like we always have that unhinged female character that's like unreliable, etc. And I kind of hope that some people can bring context to, okay, how much of this is cultural dissonance, things that I'm not familiar with, and how much of it is this is literary fiction, so people are just being extra weird and extra navel-gazy about things. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't have like finished it if it wasn't for book club, but it's another translated work for Herked, and I'm excited for the conversation, you know? So probably not my favorite thing I read, but the one that like I'm the most confused about and compiling my thoughts on. Let's just put it that way. All it made me want to do was read Strange Beasts of China again, because I love that book so much. Like, this had a story with an investigator, and I'm like, yeah, but I just want the investigator, journalist person from the Strange Beasts of China. Like, I love that book. So, that leads me to last night. I actually was in the middle of nothing, which is, like, wild. It's, like, so wild. And guys, the FOMO's real. The FOMO's real. And so, I'm going to have started The Strength of the Few. And this is my beautiful edition that they sent me. I don't know if I've shown it to you guys, probably in a TBR, but they sent me this finished copy, and I'm like, this is stunning. I already bought myself the audiobook because I listened to the audiobook of the first one. I think it's James Islington. I think that's what I was told in my comments last week. He has a style that works really well for me in audio, but there was no universe in which I remembered everything from The Will of the Many. And so I watched 2 recap videos, and I'll link them down below if you are also looking for recap videos. One from Becca and one from Tori. Both of them were really good for different things. Like, Tori reminded me more of the world building pieces, and Becca reminded me of more like plot moments. Also, I hate the proper nouns in this book. Like, I've been like this all year. This year I have no patience for proper nouns. I'm like, can you not be just Bill? Like, and everyone here is like some Roman name, and I don't know how to spell them, and so I'm just like, what? I know the main character, Vis. And, like, I'm just like, how do we spell anything? Like, I'm like, Viridius, and, like, all these other people. I'm just like, all right. But between watching those recaps, I was actually really able to jump right into this with the audio, and I've read the first 3 chapters, which, if you've read the end of the book, you can guess how that structure worked out. The end of the first book is still wild. Absolutely bonkers. I'm really curious how it's going to play out here. And I think it's going to be a really engaging narrative framework for this book, how that one led off. And yeah, I just want to be in the know because everyone's about to be reading this or reviewing it because they had arcs or something, and I want to. So continuing again, my Tome Topple with this chonky chonk, because this is definitely the longest book I've read in a minute. Oh yeah, she thick. How many pages? 710 with acknowledgements. Yeah, she's a big boy. But I really actually like this cover. So if I really like this book, I will buy myself the matching hardcover that has the gold, because I think that's stunning production, and I would really like that. And, you know, I'm getting my bookshelves soon. I think it's gonna be happening, guys. I'm getting my bookshelves soon. Like, the carpenter asked me what type of wood I wanted, how the cabinet doors are gonna be. He's been calling to verify certain schematics. So hopefully in a couple weeks. Oh, I'm very excited. Anyways, and then what else has been happening in my life? I'm watching Smallville. I'm on season 9 now. I'm still working on how I feel about season 9. Season 9 is a little edgelord for me. Granted, I know the era. That was an edgelordy time. But I'm a little like, okay. I'm a little confused. And it's definitely starting to feel kind of like, I hate when I can notice that budgets are affecting plot decisions. Like, they always are, but sometimes it's just like really obvious. And in this case, it's like, so we just have less people. The world doesn't feel as lived in if we have a smaller cast, which is just what's been happening slowly but surely. And so, like, that's been kind of more noticeable in a way that's like the opposite of cozy. I'm also watching Big Bang Theory, because I watched that when it came out, which is around the same time as Smallville. Apparently I'm in like a mid-aughts nostalgia TV rabbit hole. And like, I go back and forth about how I feel about it because, like, in many ways, it's truly not representative of a lot of how I experience nerd and geek culture, even at the time as a physicist. And it is really funny what things they say and how accurate they do attempt to be. And they'll say something that sounds really smart, but I'm also like, you learned that in freshman year physics, so it's not that deep. But it is funny, and I like that they're friends, and it feels lived in. Like, they feel like a cohesive group of friends, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. So, like, I've been, like, shown a bunch of clips from it recently on Instagram, so they got me, and I just decided to start watching it. And Ryan and I did finally finish What We Do in the Shadows. So that's been a show we'd been watching for a couple years, and, like, we finally knocked out the last 2 seasons. So now I don't know what we're gonna watch next. Well, we'll figure that out. Maybe we'll get back to Peacemaker, because we hadn't watched the new season yet. But that's kind of where I'm at. Oh, this is a fun update for me. So, for Herked, you have to watch a play. It can be of an actual play or something, or it can be, I think, a retelling of the play or an adaptation. So I guess, like, if you watched O, that could be for Othello or something like that. And if you don't know what O is, it's the basketball version of Othello, and it's kind of amazing. And I never knew what I would pick for this, but my local high school is doing Radium Girls, like the play. So I'm gonna go see that. I didn't know there was a play for Radium Girls, which is a nonfiction I really like, but it's like, that seems perfect. So I'm gonna go do that this weekend with my mom. But that's it for this video. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here. I want something red, because between The Sovereign and then, like, Rouge for Rouge Street, I think something red makes sense. It can be a heart, it can be a blood drop. I'll let dealer's choice on that one. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.